Hello. To live as a mystic is to walk with one foot in each world, the visible and the invisible, the human and the divine. Through ordinary experience and extraordinary encounters, Tanis Helliwell has spent a lifetime walking the bridge between matter and spirit. A spiritual pioneer, known for her work with elementals, spirit guides, and the soul's evolution, her books, courses, and teachings have helped thousands walk between dimensions of consciousness with humility and with humour. In her new memoir, Life of a Mystic, Tanis turns her gaze inward, tracing the thread that's guided her from childhood visions and near-death experience to a life devoted to service, community, and awakening. So what does it really mean to live as a mystic in modern times? And what can her story teach us about walking our own path with grace? Stay tuned. Tanis Helliwell, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Sandy. What a treat. And your introduction was good. I'd like to hear more about me as well.
Do you know what? I can recommend a good book.
Well, there you go.
You'll learn lots about you from that book. So let's start at the beginning. I mean, you've said you were born conscious and you could see things that others couldn't. What was that like for you, and how did you learn to trust the experiences instead of shutting them down, as I'm sure a lot of people feel compelled to do?
I think what it was the desire to be connected to spirit. Of course, as a child, I didn't know the word spirit. I wasn't raised in a family that meditated or went to church or did any of those things. But for me, it was feeling this connection to a greater, even physically, I could feel that there was something that made every cell in my body resonate. And I felt peace and love but I didn't know what it was. I called it like a different world, that there's another world. You remember Peter Pan taking the children to Never Never Land, and if you fly, well, then you could go there if you only said, wish long and hard enough. And so it was like that. I knew there was a Never Never Land. I knew that I had left there and I wanted to go back very much, and adults couldn't help me. And so that was a feeling of alienation from others and deep disappointment that others, supposedly those who knew more than me, would be adults, my parents, would not be able to help me with this. So that somehow I was on my own. So this feeling of isolation, and I think a lot of children might have that.
Mm, yeah. That must be horrible, to be a child, to grow up feeling so unseen, unknown, and you can't talk to anyone about it, and you've
No.
just got to live with it.
Yeah, and at a very young age, I think I was only 6 or 7, going to school with my girlfriends, and I hear what other people are thinking. So she would be saying nice things to me, but she'd be thinking not nice things. And I said to her, why are you thinking that about me when you're saying that? And now she really hated me. And then the other girlfriend that was with us, she was now afraid of me. So then I was even more isolated. And so in my childhood, it was learning that other people didn't hear what others were thinking. They didn't know about this other world of peace and harmony and, where you felt one with all. So it was continual during my whole childhood.
Was it a refuge for you? I mean, did you find yourself kind of, you know, looking for places to be on your own so that you could go to this other world, that you could, interact with other beings?
It was a secret I had. I didn't speak to anybody about it, didn't talk to my parents because I knew that they wouldn't understand. My brother was also psychic and had these gifts, and he got sent to a psychiatrist to be fixed. And he came back not fixed in a good way. And so that really made me shut up about anything because I didn't want to go and get fixed. So my parents used to say things like I would be lying in my bed at night, Sandy, and I'd leave my body to fly to the other room to hear what my parents were thinking and talking about. And if they were talking about anything very private between them, then I would, race back to my room and I'd call out the answers to what they were talking about. And then my parents would, could you hear us? What is it? And then they would yell out, go to sleep, big ears. So the thing in my family was that I had very good hearing. But I used to do all of these things in secret.
Mm, yeah. You said about your brother. It's not uncommon. There's a fine line between where we're allowed to use our imagination and that's condoned, and where we've gone too far and now we're making people uncomfortable when they're beginning to think that we are, not quite there. How just, how do we navigate? How do we see that line between imagination and genuine mystical perception?
Well, I think that they're the same for children, and that children do see other realms. Children do see fairies, and they have their friends that they have little tea parties with, and their parents may go along with that and call it your special friends, even though they can't see them. So children can see these other realms. I think they forget that they can. And the veil comes down when kids start to go to school and they learn not to see. And if the veil to the other worlds doesn't come down then, it comes down at puberty. Now, for some reason, my veil never came down. So it stayed open. I stayed open, if you like, all this time. The crown chakra stayed open. And my work in the world is to help people remember to open again, because I believe that it is an organic human gift and that people have learned not to see.
Puberty is a very challenging time for every individual, and we all want to fit in and we all want to be liked and we want to be in the in crowd, and wearing the right clothes. Did you find that there was this kind of dichotomous experience for you where on the one side you've got your secret and on another you're trying to navigate a normal 3D life wanting to fit in with the other teens?
Yes, I definitely had that. However, I had it basically since I was a very young child. So for me, it was just by the time I got to teenagehood, Sandy, it was automatic for me that I would listen only as deeply as people wanted to be heard. I would look only as deeply as they felt comfortable being seen. And so I developed my own ethical sense as a young child. And I still use this same ethical sense. And I think that spirit has allowed me to be able to be seen as normal, average, fit in with other people because I was able to do that. And I think my parents helped me because they were normal, hardworking, everyday folks.
You had an NDE at 19, which is quite young, isn't it? What shifted in how you thought about, saw life and death after that?
May I tell the experience for your
Yes, of course.
okay.
You can
I
say
wa
anything you want.
It was my first time skiing with my brother, and it was a very small, little ski hill, and we were going up rope tows, and so my brother gave me the directions on how to hold on, and so I'm holding on to the rope tow and looking at my skis, keeping them together, everything's going well. And then I see a sign, prepare to disembark. So I let go and discover my scarf has wound itself around the rope tow. And I'm carried up into the air, hanging by my neck. And I had amazing strength and was able to grab the rope tow with one hand and grab my scarf with another. So I was not breaking my neck. But all time stopped. And I realized that the only way I was getting down was somehow my neck was going to have to get around the pulley, which was like way up in the air because no one was turning off the power. Down, there was no one in the machine hut to turn off the power. So I was on my own again. And I saw so clearly that I had two options and that I could leave. I could go. I had free will, I had free choice, but that my parents would be totally devastated. Or I could choose to stay and my real work would not start until I was 28 so that I had time to put in. And I had no fear. I had no fear with this, and I just chose to stay because I did not want to cause pain. I didn't want to cause my parents pain.
Were you unconscious when that was revealed to you?
No, I was totally conscious during that whole experience, and I was knocked when I got close to the pulley up in the air. I prepared myself as best I could to sever the scarf. Once again, no fear, and it was like time is going so slowly that it's like I could feel everything. And and then I was knocked unconscious when my head hit, but I had already made my decision. And I was dropped, you know, onto the ground unconscious and became conscious when I heard somewhere in the foggy background my brother calling my name, and then awoke to see this look of horror in his eyes and incredible love. And that deepened my relationship with my brother, but I never spoke to my brother about what happened. I never spoke to my parents. Once again completely pretended like, "Oh, I'm fine. Why don't we go home though now? I'm
So
fine."
did that change anything for you? Like radically change anything, the way you saw things, the way you thought about them, knowing that you had this future in front of you? Or did life just
No.
continue?
I knew that once again, I was to continue leading a normal, average life, going to university, learning how to be a high school teacher, just put in time, mastering the real world. I knew I had to master the real world, and that was part of why things were going to start at age 28. And plus, who wants a spiritual teacher when they're 19? Really? So so anyway, it was the time of Saturn return.
Yeah, course.
that all of a sudden I start becoming a spiritual teacher. And what is interesting is I started teaching past life regressions and meditation and self hypnosis at that time because that's what I'd been doing during my 20s on my own. And it's interesting because my mother became one of my students.
Interesting.
Yes, yes,
Hmm. There's a whole other story there.
there is.
Yeah. Okay, we'll do that one another time. You talk about, you've written about being raped in your 20s and later seeing it as an underworld initiation. How did you find meaning in something that was so horrific, so devastating?
Well, first of all, many women have had terrible experiences being raped. And I don't want women to feel that I am underestimating the pain that they're going through because of what happened to them. Um, and so, actually talking about that in my book, I gave it serious reflection. Um, but for me, it was a realization, first of all, he was a perfect archetypal Hades from the Greek myth about Persephone, the eternal girl, who is taken by Hades into the underworld, where she becomes the queen of the underworld. And it was a perfect archetypal experience of this for me. And he didn't hurt me. He gave me drugs, which is also just like what happened with Persephone in the Hades story, but he didn't actually hurt me. And I realized that I'd been a virgin long enough. I was 21 years old, and it was actually the universe saying, forget this. You're sticking to something that isn't appropriate anymore. But I'd been raised to be a good girl, not have sex before marriage. And so God knows I might have ended up being a virgin until I was 28. So Spirit arranged this opportunity, which I recognized as an initiation into womanhood.
Yeah. You know, that must have been the hardest thing to write and the hardest thing to talk about, not necessarily because one hasn't integrated the experience, but because so many people who have had the same experience might take, you know, might want to talk about this, and might want to talk about it in a way that isn't necessarily productive for you.
That is exactly it, that I'm either in denial or that I'm anti-woman, pro-man. Women should just accept this as a great thing, however they take it. But, I have to tell, in my book, I had to tell my truth while not ignoring how other people might perceive it. But ultimately, for anybody who is writing a memoir or gets to a senior years and is reflecting on their life, it's all about the truth, Sandie.
Yeah. Oh,
You
yes.
know, how can we leave this life without ever telling our truth? There's sins of omission and then there's sins of commission. And I think a lot of people are, they go through sins of omission. They just never actually tell their real truth.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't want to touch into it. Yeah. You also talk about tyrant teachers, those who wound us into wisdom. Tell us what that means.
Well, we all have them. Uh, Tyrant teachers are people who rub us the wrong way. And they could be a mother or a father, and we just wonder, how did I ever get born into this family? Or it can be a boss at work, or it can be a partner. And we think, God, this is terrible. And tyrant teachers could be people who have terrible anger, and we have to learn how to stand up to their anger, and not cower, because of that. They could be tyrant teachers using self-pity. Oh, poor me, nothing ever goes right in my life. And so you run to the rescue, oh yes, poor you, but the person never gets out of self-pity. So
Mm.
that didn't do anything. It can be someone who is, oh gosh, the list of tyrant teachers that rub us the wrong way. It can be people who, tell stories about us that are erroneous because they want to put us in a bad light.
How would you how would you recommend people deal with that? Because it's very, as we've all had them, as you say. We
Yeah.
all have them. What's the best way for dealing with that?
Confronting it.
Confronting it. Mm.
Yeah. I feel that in our life, in order to be free, to really be free, we have to overcome all of our fears. And so if we're afraid of anger, we have to stand up to it. If we're afraid of being manipulated by others, because there's so many ways that people manipulate us, we have to confront it, and refuse to be manipulated. And that is the quickest way through, so that we become fearless. And I mean, the fears are fears of rejection. We have that. Fears of not being loved, fears of failure, fears of losing control, fears of the unknown. I mean, we have to, fears of death. Well, all these other fears we have to get through so that we can finally face our fear of death. Because they're facing fears is going through one little death after another.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. That's very true. So after all of that, having the near-death experience, having the initiation, you experienced the dark night of the soul later in life as well, after years of teaching and writing, when you were very successful and you lost your spiritual connection and became ill. What triggered that?
People either have one major dark night experience, such as an Eckhart Tolle, who was going to commit suicide and then was knocked unconscious and woke up awakened. But my life has been more of small little dark nights continually through my life. So that after I master one kind of dark night, I go on and have more of them. And ultimately, in dark nights of the soul, they we have to realize it's a dark night of the personality, Sandy. People call it dark night of the soul, but the soul's just fine. It's the personality that's having problems. But in our dark nights, we have to give up our attachment to to all of the roles that we play, all of our social conditioning, um, our attachment to others. All of these things have to go. And we have emotional dark nights where we lose our friends. We have mental dark nights where we can't think clearly anymore. We have spiritual dark nights where God is not talking to us. We have sexual dark nights where we become impotent or can't have climaxes. We have financial dark nights when we lose our money. So these are all the ways that we have to go through dark nights. Now, I go through them sequentially in no particular order. But I did go through one in my 30s, the biggie, where I went into the astral realm and I wanted to just stay there. I was in complete neutral, not thinking anything, not feeling anything, just complete neutral. And people I kept on saying, I'm invisible, but no one believed me because I could still talk. But then I had a lot of experiences which showed absolutely I was invisible to others. And I had to get help. And it turned out to be a psychic, Edna Twigg, a very well-known British psychic, who actually was able to tell me, you've got to bring yourself back and protect yourself because you're open to negative entities in the other realm because you're not protecting yourself. So people need to go through these dark nights consciously. And after you've gone through them, you're not held anymore by them. So we're free emotionally, we're free mentally to be stupid or not stupid, to know or not know. I mean, until we've gone through that, people don't want to say, oh, I don't know. Well, I don't care. If I don't know something, I say I don't know it. So you're free. And spiritually, somehow that even though you're not communicating with the divine, even though you feel totally alone, there's no Jesus helping you, there's no Mother Mary, there's no Tara, you're alone, but somehow we come to a dark night in our life, usually in middle age, when we've mastered the material world of our personality. And now the whole purpose of a dark night is to let go of that, to allow our soul to enter more fully so we can work with our soul consciously. So we've got to be alone to make that choice. Yes, Spirit, I choose you. Even though I don't feel you, see you, know you right now, I choose you. God needs to be wanted and chosen.
I understand that. So your work with the unseen, it didn't end with inner healing. I mean, it expanded into collaboration with the elemental worlds. You were communicating with the leprechauns and dragons. How did that first begin for you? And was it a bit of a shock, or by then were you used to all of these elementals?
It was a shock. Yeah, I was in my early 30s, and I had given up my work in the world of being a spiritual teacher or being a corporate consultant or being a psychotherapist. It was actually my middle 30s. And so I'd given up the world in order to become enlightened and went off to Ireland. And until then, I always thought that, I was supposed to work with human beings. And there I ended up in this haunted cottage, haunted by elementals and by a leprechaun family. And they wanted me, the male leprechaun, Lloyd, wanted me to write a book in 10 years. So, which I agreed to. So obviously for that, I was still going to be in his life and him in mine for 10 years. Well, it's turned out now to be 30 years. But yeah, until then, I thought it was all about humans. And then I learned, no, it's also about this other conscious race of beings who are evolving on our planet. And then, as you know, Sandie, it didn't stop there. I learned, in going back and doing more therapy with people, that a lot of people were part elemental. I call them hybrids, or they were part dragons. hybrids or part angelic hybrids. And so it opened a whole other realm of various various beings who in our myths, in human myths around the world, who could be entering human evolution. And as no one was writing about anything like that. So a lot.
Takes yeah. I won't say the word, but yeah, it takes a lot to do something like that when nobody is ready for it.
Ah! So I just do what I'm told to do and told by spirit. And others can work through spirit, such as the elementals or the dragons. When I wrote The Dragon's Tale about the dragon world, others can work through spirit in telling me. And sometimes it's a person or a group of my students were the ones who said, "Why don't you write a book? We've got a title, Hybrid, so you think you're human." They told me to write it. So I listen to spirit, and then I do what I feel I'm supposed to do.
You've said that the elementals have their own evolution, their own path of evolution. What does that mean, and where do we fit into that? I mean, are we destined to always pretty much be separate? Because it's not common for people to be interacting with them. Or do you see a time when, we will interact a lot more?
We have interacted previously. And when we were more living near forests and woods and had fields, and we were all over the world, people give gifts to nature spirits. And so this used to be the way that we had this honoring of them. And in Ireland, they still have the fairy circles, and a farmer never goes and cuts
That's right.
the trees in that fairy circle because he knows it's going to be bad luck to do so. So we lost that connection when we became more and more solid and industrialized and cityfied. We lost our connection not just to elementals, we lost our connection to nature, to the earth. And what elementals are is they are the form builders of everything on the earth. So they build the mountains and the forests and the rocks and the trees, but they also build our bodies, and I call it the body elemental, that actually builds the form for our bodies. And so we've lost that connection, but people are getting it back. I just received an email 2 days ago from a student of mine who had been a student for 20 years, and he is an anthroposophist, and he was follower of Rudolf Steiner. And he had been at a conference just this last week in Dornoch, which is where anthroposophy, the head of anthroposophy. And guess what? They're now talking openly about the body elemental.
Really?
Yes. And so he wrote to thank me. And then today, this morning, I received another email from another student of mine who is also an anthroposophist who just got back from Kentucky, where they are doing this big, anthroposophical convention. And she said that it's with all teachers in anthroposophy and in the school system, the Waldorf schools. And now they are all working with hybrids. And all my work on hybrids, they're wanting to bring into the school system. And she wrote to tell me this. And so what it is, and I'm sure you have found this in your life. I'm just sure of it. Sometimes we're told to do something. And we do it, and we don't know if it's a waste of effort, whether if it will ever take root. But, we give up attachment to it. We have to give up attachment to success. And it's recorded in the ethers. In the ethers, everything we have been given to do in our life purpose, it's recorded. And if we do it, we've succeeded. We have succeeded. It's in the ethers, it's in the book of life. But we can't look for success down here. And it's quite amazing when, 10 years after you write something, or in my case, sometimes 30 years after, people say, oh, guess what? We're doing this now. But we plant a seed. Haven't you done this, Sandie? Don't you do that?
Yes. I've lost count of the number of times I've done that. The thing is, can we ask for support? We can't ask for success, but can we ask for support? Because sometimes it's very lonely, creating new initiatives and putting new things out there that often don't get supported for a long time.
Well, we can ask for support by lighting our candle and, praying for it. Or we can just have it in our minds. After a while, we don't have to do affirmations 5 times a day. We don't have to write paragraphs and put it on our fridge. We just have to have the thought and trusting it. And you and I are spiritual allies. We have found each other. So I support your work in the world. You support mine. And what will happen is that people will be like a magnet drawn to us to support our work. And there will be an alignment. And sometimes it's lonely when we find that old friends who we used to have no longer have a common interest with us, and they fall away. Have to go their own way. They have to go their own way. But if we stay true to spirit, other allies come in, and we just have to say, yes, how nice. A friend who I have never met physically, I've never met you. You're in the UK. I am in this little town in Canada. But you have become a friend now. And to say, thank you, Spirit, for sending me this person who I can speak to on a soul level. So we give up having personality friends. We start having soul friends. And when we're really lucky, our soul friends are also our personality friends.
Yeah. That's a good way of looking at it. So what do you think would happen? How would the world change if we could all reconnect with the elementals?
Oh, very, very quickly. You take me back to Misuru Emoto and his wonderful work on water, and how he discovered and wrote several books that what we think about that glass of water, if we send positive thoughts about that glass of water, oh, you're healthy, oh, I love you, then it forms these beautiful, coherent crystals. If you look under a microscope, and if you think, oh, I don't like you, you're bad water, then it forms terrible little, not nice crystals that you want to have nothing to do to, so that we're thinking, and water becomes what we think about. Now, we are water, 75% water molecules. That's what we are. And the earth is 75% water molecules. Duh. Is this a no-brainer that we have the same amount as the earth does, you know? So as we're thinking about ourselves, are we sending positive thoughts to ourselves or negative thoughts? Because it's going in that 75%. It's making us healthy or it's making us not healthy. As we think about others, it's the same thing. Are they healthy or not healthy? Now, it is the elementals who are doing all this. The body elemental, the elementals out there making the earth, air, fire, and water. So, of course, we could heal the earth like that, with the right thought. So, it is absolutely essential we realize this thing about thoughts create our reality.
Yeah. So how can we, approach this kind of contact? How do we initiate? How do we begin to, interact with elementals?
Two ways. One is externally by appreciating nature. Walking in the forest, walking in the fields, looking at the ocean and saying, "Oh, how beautiful. Thank you so much for your life. Thank you for creating air, trees, and oxygen. Thank you, plants, for giving me this food." So it's a sense of gratitude and appreciation strengthens elementals, makes them healthy. So that's the way we can do it externally, and we can learn, of course, to talk to our elemental friends. Like Lloyd, because we all have some elemental, just like a friendly angel who wants to talk to us. We've got a friendly elemental. But also inside, we can do it by everything we've discussed so far, which is do our own work, right? Do our own work, do our own purification. Let go of our old wounds and traumas and roles we play and our societal conditioning and become free. And then through this, it is a natural, organic process that we will start seeing these other realms. We will. If we do our own work, we become clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient. We see these other realms. It's organic.
I want a Floyd. I've loved dragons since as long as I can remember, and I would love to have a relationship with one.
Well, dragons are coming back to the earth now in consciousness. They've been here all along, as you said. You've felt this relationship with them. And they were here creating the earth with spirit. I mean, that's what their great gift is, to catalyze the Kundalini fire of different planets and solar systems into consciousness. That's their great gift. So they've been here forever. And now they're coming back to help the earth with its rebirth into a conscious planet. And because you and I and everyone are cells in the body of the earth, each of us is going to also feel this attraction to dragons.
It's
And
interesting how, they've been in the media, in books for children for the last 30 years, TV programs, etc. I mean, you didn't hear much about them 50, 60 years ago, but 30
no,
years ago, yeah, we did.
children, yeah. About 30 years ago, I
Yeah.
was doing a children's camp with our institute. And we had all these children and teenagers who had come who were having spiritual breakthroughs, and they came with their parents or their grandparents or a guardian. And I was doing a guided visualization to help everyone, the adults and the children, to find a friend that wanted to work with them. And I thought everybody would choose an elemental. because we had talked about elementals then. We talked about fairies. They'd had drawings of fairies, and I thought everyone's going to choose an elemental. Well, we went around the circle, and the adults actually did choose elementals, and every child chose a dragon. Every child. Even the autistic children chose dragons. So the children are the first to know, but they had not had the veil to come down yet, to close themselves off.
Mm. Well, you've got to admit that, having a dragon as a pal is a pretty good thing. Nobody's going to mess with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, so something in you has known it for all your life, and you're being called now to rekindle this knowing at a deeper level in yourself. So, who can know? Maybe conversation will come. A friend, a dragon friend for you.
So if the elementals could give humanity one important message, what do you think they would say to us?
Work with us to heal the planet.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good one. So you've written about moving from flowering to fruit, using your gifts to serve the whole. What does that stage look like in your life right now?
It looks like I talk about people moving from just being more ego focused about their own lives to having a soul infused personality. And that means we've all got personalities. Obviously, we've been given the right one by spirit. The Dalai Lama has his own particular one, and Mother Teresa had hers, and you've got yours. So it's the right vessel we've been given as the personality vessel. Okay. However, soul wants to enter this. So why? When you are a soul-infused personality, your personality is in service to the divine. The soul's united with spirit, with God. And so that, for the last 25 years, I have been in service to the divine. And so many books got written during that period of time. And it doesn't mean that I wasn't spiritual earlier on. It's been a gradual process. And even during this 25 years, it's been a gradual process of more and more dedication to service. And for me, that means service to the earth, to the evolution of the earth and the health of the earth. It means service to all humans, and it means service to all beings. And I don't just feel it's related only to this earth. I feel that this works in a cosmic way, that we are linked, all of us are linked through our central channel. It goes way up past our crown chakra. It goes right to the great central sun, our creator, our God, if you like. And I believe that I'm in service to this galactic center in cosmos more and more. And it's not perfect yet. I found, Sandie, how we go through stages, and I've always been connected to the Holy Spirit, which is wisdom. And, I was raised a Christian, and my deeper connection to the Christ or Christ consciousness came later. And I still have not united with the Father. So more connected to two of the three holy trinities. And I think some of that has got to do with being raised in a patriarchal society and having reservations about the Father God, and whatever happened to the Mother God in our world. I think some of it comes from that, but some of it, probably the majority, to be honest, comes from my reluctance still to fully sacrifice my in everything to completely do this. And it's not like I don't want to. It's that something always comes up. So it's at some level, there's still not a complete desire to put spirit, God first, a complete 100% desire. So maybe it's 90. Oh, I'm hearing it's even more than that now, thank God. But it isn't 100. And I know it has to be a 100% yearning to unite fully with spirit and merge fully with spirit without any personality. Haven't come there yet. But if we acknowledge where we're at, we acknowledge how far we've come, and we continue with the journey, recommitting. Spirit, God knows that we're doing that. And we get it's enough. It's enough.
Mm. Mm. Yeah.
I hope I
Yeah.
answered your question.
Yeah, I think I think you answered the next question too. I was going to ask you about, after so many years of teaching and writing, how do you balance the pull toward solitude with the outer call to keep showing up for others? It's like this path can be lonely and it can be hard. And it, people talk about, oh, I'm awake, everything's fine now. No, it's not. That's just the beginning, that's just the beginning of a long, hard road.
Yeah.
And I often wonder, what is it that keeps people going forward? And I think, you've answered it. You're committed. We can't do anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, we are. We're committed. And I'm still attached to, I talk about this in the last chapter of my book. I'm still attached to the outer world and teaching. I'm still attached to going and doing workshops in person or online workshops and feeling that I am making a good contribution in people's lives. And I enjoy feeling that. So it's an attachment. So I am withdrawing from this. I'm withdrawing from my act of teaching because I realize it's an attachment, because ultimately we have to give up all attachments. And even though I feel it does serve spirit that I've been doing this, I think spirit is beckoning me to move more into being. I don't mean retirement. I mean deeper meditation. I mean giving up doing to be. So this is what I'm currently in the process during these next year and a half of winding down my commitments so that I can be. And I feel that the deeper my connection with spirit, the more I will be helping spirit. So I don't know if that means I re-enter 3 years down the road or not. It doesn't matter. We must give up an attachment without any of those, oh, but in a few years, if things
Yeah.
don't go well,
Yeah. Plan B.
plan B. Hold on to that one.
Yeah. I want to take a little segue before we close and talk about the time that we are in right now. You and I had a conversation before we came on air about, the bugs that have been going around and how they've been knocking people for six and really giving people a hard time. And also, forget the physical, the emotional, the psychological, challenges that are facing everybody because we've never been in this position before, and unthinkable things have become very thinkable. What is your take on all of this? I mean, did you expect us to arrive at a time like this? Do you see us getting through it to the other side anytime soon? What's your view?
I've spoken about the coming age for decades, the Aquarian age and all the gifts and consciousness that will come out of it. And I always stress the positive in the outer world. And I always recommended that the best way we could prepare was to go through our own personal transformation and purification of all the things we've been discussing. So I've always recommended do your personal work, and this is what you're going to get. You're going to get to these other levels of consciousness and the Aquarian age, and it's going to be wonderful. I didn't realize, probably, that we were going to go through this purification in the outer world in such a intense way in short period of time. And yet I feel many people have done their work. We're pioneers, the people who are here right now, all over the world, pioneers to be bridges from the old world to the new world of consciousness. So, and we've done our work. So I have a real good feeling about everything that we're going through. Ultimately. But that doesn't mean that externally we don't go through all the dark nights of the soul that we've been personally going through inside. And a lot of people who haven't been doing their spiritual work, let's call it the mainstream, they're now having the opportunity to go through their dark night of the soul quickly by what's going on in the real world. And it's because spiritual people like you and I and countless others have already done it. We have created a wonderful field of you can do it. You can do it. It's okay. And so they're going to go through it more quickly, more intensely maybe, but I have real hopes that the majority of people will make it because I feel there will be a separation ultimately between those that are prepared to surrender their ego and alignment to spirit, moving to this higher vibration, this higher frequency earth, and those that are not, being on a lower frequency earth. So that it's, I think, a time of separating the wheat from the chaff. And I don't say that to create fear for people, but for them to think, don't put it off. What do you think, Sandie?
I honestly don't know. I mean, I'm by nature an optimist. I never expected, to see and hear the things we're seeing and hearing. But I also know that you can't, the old saying, you can't make an omelette without cracking the eggs. Everything had to come down first. I guess I just didn't expect it to come down so quickly and so much of it, you know. But I do believe that once we get through this, and we will get through this, and I do believe that, you know, a higher consciousness is being granted to all of us, if we choose, you know, to go for it, that we can get through. We can. And all of the chaos and the hate and the anger I see as the last gasp, you know, of a dying paradigm, if you like.
Yes.
That's what I see it as. Unfortunately, it's, you know, it's a grasp as well as a gasp, and you know, people are holding on tight, but I think we can do it. I
I
really do.
I do too. And also, I think we have to not feel that any of us know all the answers to this. I was getting a massage yesterday, and the person who massages me is a really good friend, and yet she her belief system around certain political leaders is quite contrary to mine. And So, and I have 3 friends whose belief system on these figures are very contrary to mine. And these are very different people coming from very different walks of life. And none of them stupid. And so it's interesting to think, you know what? There's no enemy. There's no, how do I know that what I'm seeing is totally right and what they're seeing is totally wrong? This black and whiteness, you know? How do I know that? Do I know spirit's complete workings out of this? No. I got guesses, but I don't know the full story.
None of us do. None of us do. And without making excuses for anyone, you know, there have got to be some people who are willing to crack the eggs, you
You
know?
know, this is it. Whether they're conscious or unconscious and working as a tool, maybe, who knows?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, interesting.
yeah. Well, we will see. You know, history will tell us.
And we may not be alive to see the result of this, and that's okay too. We've been here to build the bridge between the Piscean and Aquarian age, and we've been doing our work.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's it. That's it. So, what do you most want people to take away from your book? I mean, it's very courageous, the things you've shared. You've been very, very honest, authentic all the way. What's your hope for what people will get out of it?
My hope is that they'll read some of these stories and my perceptions around why they happened, when they happened, how they happened, and that it will catalyze in them feelings of, oh, yes, I forgot about this wounding in my childhood. Or, oh, yes, I also went through an awakening experience. How come I never really remembered that? Right? So I'm hoping this is going to deepen their own spiritual journey. And I've been hearing from people already that it has, which was my deeper reason for writing it, not just to string together my own history, to try to more deeply figure out my own history and how it led to now, which I think is a wonderful reason for people to write their memoir, but to also help others. It is really my ultimate purpose.
Tanis Helliwell, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Sandie, for having me.
Oh,
Very happy to be here.
always welcome. So, reflecting on Tanis's life story makes me think that it maps out the whole cycle of awakening, the curiosity that starts it, the loss that tests it, and the humility that completes it. It shows us that awakening isn't one moment of revelation, but a lifelong process of being broken open and rebuilt by experience. Each stage, wonder, loss, illness, and renewal strips away illusion until only what's real can remain. And it reminds us that the spiritual path isn't upward, it's inward. It's how we meet the human moments that decides how awake we really are. So maybe awakening was never about escaping the human story, but learning how to live it fully awake, as Tanis Helliwell has done. Tanis Helliwell is founder of the International Institute for Transformation, which offers courses in spiritual development to help individuals around the world become conscious co-creators and guardians of our planet. She's the author of several best-selling books, including Summer with the Leprechauns, Hybrids, So You Think You're Human, The Dragon's Tale, Decoding Your Destiny, and her memoir, of course, Life of a Mystic, Embracing Pathways to Consciousness. And you can learn more about her work, upcoming courses, programs, writings, and free offerings at tanishelliwell.com. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer, and I love conversations that shift perceptions, spark insights, and keep you thinking long after the show. Join me for another one next week. Till then, thanks for listening, and my thanks again, and great appreciation for Tanis Helliwell.